record button on my computer, and now we're going. And welcome everyone to our roundtable series on CTE COVID response. This is the July 20th, 2020 edition. It looks like we have about 167 and climbing as far as attendance. That is fantastic. And we'll go through a few slides here, and then we'll open it up to the group for the roundtable, which is what it's meant to be. This is an interesting slide. You know, sometimes we talk in some of these districts, you know, they think they have it better than others, and I don't really think they do. And these two cowboys really remind me of that, where this one's telling Frank here, he says, boy, it's nice and cool in the shade. Yes, sir, really nice and cool. But I think he's going to be in the sun at some point, and it doesn't look like it's going to get a lot better after that. That's one of my favorites, by the way. And also, you can see this is the COVID response, and you know, the most interesting man in the world says, "Welcome to Team Awesome," because our CTE group here is so awesome, and especially in helping with each other out and figuring out what's coming and what's going. And then we wanted to make sure that we told everyone that in general, the COVID response roundtables are for members only. Just like David Hasselhoff's jacket, you know, it's for members only. And so make sure that you join CTAT, because it's not just the roundtable. If you've enjoyed the conference and some of the sessions, the networking abilities and some of the programming that's offered, it's second to none in the state. And so I encourage you to join and be a part of the roundtable for as long as it lasts. On Friday, TEA announced additional reopening guidance, which included a local option for online start to the 2021 school year. And basically the change is that school systems will now be able to temporarily limit access to on-campus instruction for the first 4 weeks of school. An additional 4-week extension, if needed, can be added with a board-approved waiver and approval from TEA. And so the board will have to approve the waiver request, and TEA will approve the waiver. The important exceptions exist for students, specifically those any family that lacks internet access at home or requires devices for students to learn virtually. If they can't get those devices, then they're entitled to on-campus instruction every day, even during the transition period. So if you decide to go virtual, then the students either have to have the devices or they have to be permitted on campus for learning every day. And local school boards for districts and areas with high levels of community spread of the COVID-19 also retain the flexibility to delay the start of the school year. And if you listen to the superintendent's call, the commissioner says that the districts always have the ability to set their own school year, with the exception of running into the next school year, of course. 1 week prior to the start of on-campus activities and instruction, school systems must post for parents and the general public a summary of the plan developed in consultation with their teachers, staff, and parents, how they will follow to mitigate, to prevent the spread of COVID-19. TEA released new public health guidance and attendance and enrollment documents, and I try to keep those up to date on the CTAT Technical Assistance webpage, and you can go there. If you'll go to the ctat.org and click on resources, you'll have access to all the technical assistance, including the updated documents. But you can also just go to they're a lot better at posting these. A few weeks ago, they'd send them out and then they'd take them down and you couldn't find them. But now they're just on, if you look, you can find them on that COVID-19 TEA website. But there it is. they have a new, the new guidance documents are out, and they always mark all of the additions with big yellow boxes with the date that they were updated. And so the newest document, unless they added something a few hours ago, is from July 17th. There's 4 sets of practices that they talk about on the public health, and it's about providing notice. That's the requirement for parental, what you have to tell the stakeholders and where you have to post it. Prevention, what schools are doing to prevent COVID-19 from entering the school. Response, the required practices that a school has to go through to respond to a lab-confirmed case in the school district. And we went through those quite a bit the last time. And then to mitigate, what are schools doing to reduce the likely spread inside the school? Cleaning and disinfecting and social distancing, such. School systems must post for parents and the general public 1 week prior to the start of on-campus activities and general instructions. Per TEA 25, Texas Education Code 25.092, students must attend 90% of the course in order to be awarded credit. This requirement will remain into effect during the 2021 school year. This has been one of the first guidance documents they put out, and it stayed in there steady. So count on the 90-10 rule being in effect for attendance. Student attendance may be earned through the delivery of virtual instruction. That's been true for several months now, since the first guidance documents. Any parent that may request that their student be offered virtual instruction from any school system that offers virtual instruction. And I don't see any schools not willing to offer virtual instruction, because simply the loss of the ADA would be incredible. Make sure this is the TEA COVID website, and make sure that you check this daily for updates, and they will always have the updates posted in red. And I took this right off the website yesterday, and you can see July 17th is the last update for both public health guidance and the attendance and enrollment frequently asked question page. And I want to mention one more thing, because we're still getting quite a few emails about the CTE courses and the on-campus recommendations. And I want to reinforce that TEA has determined that all CTE courses can be provided through remote instruction. Again, TEA has determined that all CTE courses can be provided through remote instruction. However, they did provide that list of courses that may require a portion to be completed on campus, created as a this is a recommendation to districts, local education agencies with planning on-campus time for students who are part of remote-only instruction. It's the district's decision to determine the amount of on-campus instruction needed, and districts may decide that additional courses may need on-campus instruction. But the district's flexibility to mandate on-campus instruction for all or part of the CTE courses, or to make it optional, or to do it all virtual. Okay, so now I think I'm gonna hit the slide here, and I'm gonna go back to the gallery view and open it up for roundtable discussion. 321, I think that's a record. I guess if you guys don't mind, does someone mind kicking off and telling us what you've decided as far as starting school? Are you going to go all virtual, or?
I'll kick it off. I'm Dr. Cathan, the CT director with Waco ISD. On Thursday night, our board will vote to delay the start of school until the Tuesday after Labor Day. We're hoping that this will give us some time for things to settle out, and then also give us the option to do at least 3 weeks of online instruction from that start date. We're currently looking at that, and it's all indications, and that came from our community, that they wanted to do that. The next thing is that we are not going to put any courses on the list. I have fears for the future. I've got 4 automotive teachers. You know, our kids love our CTE classes, and I'm not going to put them in something just to fill their day. And so I know some people are doing that. I also have a problem with access, and I know with Texas, it's one thing, but when we take Perkins dollars, if we deny access to programs, I have some concerns about that. And, you know, that's a federal thing. So we're not going to. We're looking at doing some things like having some extra pay for teachers to bring up the ones that choose virtual to come into small groups on Saturdays to do their labs. We've gotten, Dads has given us permission to use the dummies for CNA, you know, practice. And so we're just going to go through. I mean, I guess I'm a Pollyanna, but I'm hoping that come January, we're going to want to be back in the classroom. And, you know, what's that automotive kid? He want to go back into his automotive class. And if I put him in something just to fill his time slot, he's not going to be ready to go to the second half of automotive. So we're not putting anything on that list. And I understand why you might, but in talking to our teachers and our community, I've started a CTE coffee chat with my teachers. We meet once a week to talk about the issues they're having, and we're just addressing them one at a time. There are issues, and there's things that are going to be hard, but like I said, we are putting back extra duty pay for teachers in this year's budget. If I need to bring up small groups, we can do that. Make and take kind of things, maybe for culinary. We're just brainstorming and walking through. I know with our education and training, one of the ideas that came up is that our students, instead of going out and doing their work at the elementary school, they are going to do virtual. They're going to adopt a teacher and do some virtual lessons for those teachers. So they'll get the same experience that teachers are getting. So we're taking each one day at a time and developing ways to do it, but we are delaying the start of school in Waco ISD.
Donna, those are some great solutions. And let me make sure. So what you're saying is that Waco ISD is not going to mandate on-campus instruction for any of the CTE courses. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that was a decision. I met with the administrative staff on Friday. That's a decision that we've made. I believe we're 98% CTE classes. We have kids in strong pathways. If they're in a 2-hour culinary class, what 2 CTE classes am I going to put them in? And then if we come back in the spring and they don't get to go to culinary, what's going to happen? We're going to have very mad and angry parents. I came in on the end of a discussion, like a pre-classroom, pre-discussion, and I do think there's long-range implications here, guys, and that's what scares me. You know, you're talking about your freshmen, your sophomores. Your sophomores are really the dangerous ones. Are they going to finish their sequences? Are they going to be completers? How are they going to get are they going to miss out training their sophomore year that would help them get a certification their senior year? Because they're not going to give us excuses for 4 years. Oh, that's that COVID class. So I think we're just not going to do it. And I had a little conversation, and I understand the first time I've met this, and I talked to Robin, and I know there's reasons for districts. We are not. We're offering everything, and we'll figure it out as we go.
Thanks, Donna. Fantastic.
Hey, Donna, this is Allison Benson from Burville ISD and the rest of the crew. We are offering all courses, all CTE, going to try to keep their schedule just the same as it was when they left last year. I think it's important for funding for the students. If we don't get to have, long range results that are not good, we are going to try to have some kids come up sometimes for those that are willing. We're even, if a student wants to take all their core classes online and they want to come up for just CTE, we're going to let them do that. So our goal is to keep all of our students, serve them all, and work with families to do what we need to do.
And Allison, that we're on the same page there. We have those multi-district academies. They spend half a day at a smaller academy, I know, similar to what you have. And we're even offering students, if they don't want to go to Waco High with 2,500 kids, but they want to come to Guama where there's 200, parents might feel better, and so we're letting them split those choices. And by the way, on Friday, we were in the middle of the meeting, the commissioner came out and said we are allowed to do some type of hybrid training for high school only now. So, you know, we're building the airplane. It's not only flying, but it's crashing, I think. So we're just having to go as we go. But yeah, we're not doing it.
Katie Morris asked a question in chat about the computer labs. What are you guys doing in regards to spacing your students apart in computer labs, putting up dividers? I know we had a committee that Ms. Martin led a committee, and they had some great recommendations on that, but kind of for discussion, what are y'all doing for your computer labs?
Mark, those are all options that we're looking at in Round Rock, and then also disposable keyboard covers. Kind of like if you've gone to Target lately, they've got the little clear plastic over the numbers because you can wipe that down. So it would be something easy that we could spray down or wipe in between periods, and at the end of the day, just pull that plastic cover off. Whether it'll be disposable, reusable, industrial, saran wrap, I don't know. It'll depend on what we can source from Amazon or whoever, but all of those different things, yes, and more.
Excellent. Anybody have anything different than that?
I'm in Fort Worth ISD, and most of our high schools CTE labs are all under construction. We don't even know if the rooms are going to be finished the first day of school, much less what the setup's going to be. We were told the new rooms were going to be set up in sets of 4 pods where the students with computer monitors will all be back to back with each other, and the kids would sit in a 4-pod circle. But that was back in April. And again, we don't even know if we're going to have rooms, much less how they're going to be set up. And Fort Worth just announced today through social media, we're going back the 17th, and the parents can choose to send their kids to school or keep them at home.
Sounds like y'all may be getting a bunch of Big Chief tablets.
Yeah.
What about dividers? Is anyone putting up dividers? Have y'all heard any for sure?
It was discussed in our last administrative meeting. In fact, they asked me if I could build some at the Manufacturing Academy for them. But we haven't gotten that far. There are some things, remember those press and seal, ladies that used to buy that press and seal, you know, that you pressed it down and like seal the top of a bowl or something. I have a teacher that's investigating press and seal for the keyboard. I also, and I can share it with you, Mark, and you can pass it. I have TSTC's plan for their labs that might help some of you. So Mark, I'll send that to you, and that might be helpful for some of those to see what the colleges are doing to protect their students in labs.
Thanks, Donna, and I'll send those out to everyone and post it on Connect CTAT too. Great deal.
Donna, I have a question, and this actually anyone could really answer this, but for all of the CTE classes that you're offering later in the school year, I'm assuming that I think all districts are required to allow students to stay virtual all year if they choose to do that, whether the district is open or not, right? Is that correct, Mark?
Well, it depends. During that transition period, you can require everyone to be virtual as long as everyone has a device. But even during the transition period, you have to provide the device or let the student come up and do the remote work on campus. You know, it's the silly way of saying it. And so,
but I guess, so let's say if a student says, I want to be online all year, the district has to accommodate that, right?
Well, they do as long as they're offering virtual instruction. If they cease to, let's say there's a cure for the plague comes out in October, and so they say, we're going back to school November 1st, everyone, and we're going to cease remote instruction. You know, that I realize that's an extreme. Well, then that student loses that ability to request online instruction. But to answer what you're saying is essentially correct. As long as you're offering virtual instruction, then every parent, every student has the right to request that.
As long as we're offering. See, I thought it was a requirement that districts have to offer virtual instruction. No?
No, that's the district's option. If the district doesn't offer virtual instruction, then students can go to any district that does allow it.
Okay. Okay. Well, with that being said, then any district at any given time could have some students who have chosen to go virtual and some students that are coming to class. So for the do districts, are you planning for one teacher to have, let's say it's second period, some of the students are online and some of the students are in class?
That depends on what type of online system your district selects. There's synchronous and asynchronous. If your district chooses synchronous, then the teacher will be online and in person at the same time. If they do asynchronous, then there are some options where a student can log in. But the thing is it just depends on what your district selects.
All of your CTE teachers, though, are going to be required to support online students and in-person students.
All teachers have to.
Well, I think what Ms. Morgan is saying is that if you're a third grade teacher, there's a very high likelihood that your district is going to provide a remote third grade teacher. But that won't be true for welding. You know, they're not going to hire a different remote teacher for welding. So, you know, that's been the $1 million question, especially, you know, a lot of our CTE teachers with 4 or 5 preps turn into 8. And, you know,
I mean, I think so. Once again, it depends on which type your campus picks. And so you need to find out from your district, are you synchronous or asynchronous? So
well, we're doing a combination of both. I think I'm not asking the question well. What our district is trying to do is to not burden a teacher to have to serve students both, like let's say it is construction technology. If the student is going to take it online, then we're trying to reserve a whole period or 2 periods for the teacher to have all of those students together. And we're trying to not let the classes mix, where a teacher has a section of students, some are classified as being online and aren't in the class, and then some are in-person brick and mortar students, and the teacher actually sees those.
So Bastrop ISD is doing asynchronous. That's the model we've chosen for our online learners, and we are going to have teachers with students in class all day long, and then we're also building sections that are online, right? So our student information system needs to have them divided into different sections. What I'm trying to do is line it up where one teacher for the district could teach like principles of education and training, and they would cover all the campuses that are offering that, which will kind of help with that unfairness that you're seeing. If we've got an English 1 teacher, one is teaching only online, one is teaching only in person, and then we are asking our CTE teachers effectively to do a double job. So I'm trying to make it where they have no more than 2 online classes. They're helping each other out and covering each other. And then we're also going to use tutorial pay for them to check in with those students after school. So they'll run a Google Classroom, since it's asynchronous, them checking in and doing their work will count their attendance for that portion of the day. And then the teacher checking in ensures that we have a certified CT teacher still as the teacher of record.
One of the other things you can look at too is in larger districts with multiple high schools. This has never happened before. We may end up having campuses without borders, where if you have online students and you have a certain number of online students, then they're being taught by a teacher who may be from school A, but you have students in that class from schools A, B, and C. And, then that means you have to align your curriculum, both online and in person. But it does allow then for a teacher not to have those multiple preps. They're teaching the online students from across the district. And then the teachers who are on campus are on their campus teaching the students who are there.
I think something to keep in mind is that there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all with respect to everything that we're talking about today, because larger districts that have multiple campuses are going to be able to do that. Or if you have a single high school that has multiple teachers in a specific pathway, you're going to be able to do some of these things. However, if you're in a small one high school district with one teacher who's teaching 4 courses, and that's 7 periods throughout the day, because those courses, once you start getting into the advanced courses, are more than 1 credit, you're not going to have those options unless you hire additional staff, and most districts are not going to be able to afford that. So you have to keep in mind the size of your district is going to directly put in play whether you can do or make use of some of these suggestions. If you have a smaller campus or a smaller district with 1 campus with 1 teacher per pathway, you are offering both online and in-person instruction, you may very well end up with that teacher teaching a hybrid course every single period that they're teaching a course. Just, something to keep in mind. There's not going to be one size that fits all for everyone.
So would we say that it's going to be common for the small districts to have teachers that are serving both online students and students in person, kind of, I say at the same time, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, they're still all in the class. It's just going to look different.
I think you're right, but I don't think it's just small districts. I think it's also going to be your singletons. I mean, how many periods do you teach that particular course? They may be the only one teaching it. I was banking and finance. I have 1 section, and 1 teacher. And so I think it's not just the small districts that face that, but some of us that have so many different courses and pathways and stuff, you're going to have multiple teachers. Theater is another example outside of CTE. My daughter teaches theater in McKinney. She's the only theater teacher. So yeah, she's probably going to have to teach all her classes, and they're doing synchronous. And so she's got to be online every day, every period.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about so many of the small districts that I have in my region, and I'm thinking they've got 1 English teacher that teaches all level of English, and 1 math teacher that teaches multiple preps of math. And think about it in our small districts that have, 1 ag teacher that teaches all the ag classes, and they normally stack many of those ag classes. So absolutely, Dana, and several other of you have been watching the chat, that it's not just going to be a challenge of in-person synchronous or in-person asynchronous, or however you're going to do your model. You also have the challenge of, are you stacking your classes? Because a lot of my small districts stack their classes. You might be doing principles of ag with, I can't even think what you normally stack it with, but you may be stacking one of health science. So very often they stack theory with practicum. And some of the others. So yeah, it's going to happen a lot. So there's going to have to be a lot of conversations. And that's one of the reasons why Donna and I are such good friends, because she and I are such global thinkers. And we do a lot of that, bouncing ideas off each other. So you're going to really have to be talking to each other and talking to your teachers about what are some creative ideas and ways that you can make this happen.
Yeah, it's going to, the teachers are just going to be,
I listened to those superintendent phone calls with the commissioner. They posted them on YouTube, or they did. They've got them all taken down now. But one of the superintendents asked the commissioner, said, well, how is the teacher supposed to do that? Keep up with all the asynchronous. And he said, well, he says, I don't think they'll be able to. You might want to get with another district and team up. And so, that's you know, that was great guidance.
Well, and unfortunately, I think, I don't know if it was Ruthie, but someone said, you know, the conversation was with your teachers. Well, when our higher TEA, et cetera, still doesn't even know, well, how can you can have these conversations? This is my first day back as my instructor role. And, you know, I've got other people stopping by going, what are we going to be doing? And, you know, we don't know yet. I mean, we don't know what this picture is like. And how can you have those conversations? It's just.
Well, my boss, she's always giving me a hard time. She's like, Donna, quit planning. I'm like, I can't, I gotta. And so I think it's you sit down and you start looking and brainstorming. And we know that school, I mean, technically we know school's not going to start face-to-face, full face-to-face in August or September. That's just a given. I mean, unless some miracle happens in a month, most of us will be back at school. And so that's where you start, and you just have to start breaking it down piece by piece. But like I said, in the middle of our administrative meeting, the night of the board meeting, they're giving us different directions. And then the governor comes out and says something, and we have to wait for the commissioner to make it official. So it's just a nightmare. But I think you just start talking to them. What if this happens? And what do you think about this? And I think our teachers have brilliant ideas. And so I think we just start talking, and you just start having those hard conversations. And, you know, I just think we're going to start you're going to have some virtual. Districts are required to offer some virtual. You have to offer both. And so you might as well start looking and planning.
Yeah, like Rick was saying, you know, you just talk to each other and talk to your neighbors and see what everybody else is doing. And like Donna was saying, what if, and start writing everything down and see, you know, because not everything's going to work. And like Twyla's always saying, give yourself some grace. If it doesn't work, try something different.
We're from a 3A school, and we're doing asymptomatic, but they're going to give us a half a day on Mondays to work on our online, because we'll be doing both. And so they're going to give us, you know, 3 or 4 hours on Mondays, and the kids will be online or, you know, doing homework or whatever the rest of that day. And then they're going to try to give us, you know, more time during the week. But I think we can only do as much as we can do, and that's about it.
One thing that I did hear that's kind of positive is that if your district doesn't already have one, then TEA is planning to provide free of charge a learning management system that will automate asynchronous attendance. So keep an eye out on that. And as soon as I see something, for sure, I'll send that out.
I think I saw that they're going to be giving schools Canvas for 2 years. Is that correct?
I haven't. Has anyone else heard? All I've heard is they always use the term LMS, a learning management system. I haven't heard definitively that it's Canvas. Have y'all heard that in the past couple of days?
Use Canvas.
I know that our district, and we're at Connolly ISD, they are, I think it's the first, we've never had a true LMS, and I believe that they are offering it. I'm not sure the time frame that they're offering it for free, but my wife and I were just talking about it, and she said that was the case.
Very good. I'll keep an eye out. There's a lot of people in the chat box mentioning that they use Schoology, And in the commissioner's call, they said that if you have one and you're using it, that's fine. It's just that if you don't, you're a small school or whatever the case may be, whenever you don't have one, that TEA was going to provide free of charge a learning management system, and that system would automate asynchronous attendance.
I'd like to throw out some questions to see how other districts are doing it, because they're coming up with the teachers and teachers' concerns. What about, have y'all talked about daycare and teachers that have small children and can't get daycare? And what about students, for example, you have a young child who's going to have to be home for 3 weeks and the teacher's got to be teaching for 3 weeks. Have your districts explored any of those kinds of questions? It's not directly CTE, but I'm just curious while I've got you together. What about daycare and students, teachers with children who are at home doing virtual learning because the first 3 weeks are virtual? Anything on that? Just to know, just curious.
Our district is allowing teachers to decide whether or not they're going to stay home. They're not forcing anyone to come in, but they're giving teachers the choice. If they need to work from the office, they can come in. I know other districts in our area, one district in particular is allowing teachers to bring their young children into work with them so that they can do virtual learning alongside their parents if they don't have childcare. Those are just some things that I've heard. I'm in El Paso, and I've been talking to teachers in other districts, and that's some of the options that they have available. But I know in other districts here, there's been no clear directive, and a lot of parents who are also teachers are very worried about whether or not they'll be able to continue working at all, because a lot of the daycares here are also closed.
I do know that some people have looked at daycares, but I think where they get stuck, allowing people for their own children to come in, is that it could look like a gift of public funds, especially if they operated a daycare. We've got a couple of child care centers on a few of our campuses for our teen parents, and then staff can use those, and they looked at scaling that, and the issue was gift of public funds. And so now it's a question of, I have no idea if we have Round teachers on here. I have no answers one way or another, but I don't know how it's been decided yet if they can bring kids to school or not. But I'm married to an ag teacher, and he has to physically report in, and I've got to figure out my kids. So I'll be in the same boat as any teacher.
Thanks.
I just saw another question on chat. Has anyone found any virtual welding software that might constitute a good lab activity?
We have not started exploring that. One of the things that we've talked about doing, once again, is to work on the symbols, a lot of the welding symbols, get our OSHA training done, some of that stuff. And then if they come back in the spring, like I said, offer weekend small group welding sessions. And then also look at, once they get back in the spring, they may need to do nothing but weld. So we haven't started looking for that software. There are virtual welders out there, but then the students would have to have access to that virtual welder. So at this point, no, but if I find something, once again, we're just starting those academy by academy discussions. So we have, I have a huge welding program, so we've got to find something. But like I said, the things we're talking about doing is you've got to do the symbols. There's so much about welding that is done, if you want to, can be done before you actually touch a welder. And then, but The only other issue we have, like with welding, has to do with dual credit. Dual credit, we're working with TSDC now because you have to have so many hours of hands-on in order to get the credit. So, yeah, that's our biggest issue there is I have to have 100 hours of a kid welding on a welder to get dual credit, and that's going to be a tough one. But
I know that. Go ahead, Don. I'm sorry.
I was just saying we'll figure it out. I mean, we're going to have to figure out how to do it. And if somebody finds virtual software to practice welding, let me know. I haven't seen anything, but once again, there's a lot of things. I think we need to look at what kinds of things do you have to have in automotive. I mean, we have the safety issues. Your welding has the safety issues. I mean, think of all the things that you don't have to touch a welder for that you can do in the fall, and maybe even do it in the spring, but you bump it back to the fall learning. And then I keep saying hopefully, I guess I'm being a little naive, but hopefully we'll be back in January, and then we can do, if we have to, we'll weld every single day to get those times in. But I think we have to look at what can we do now to support those classes. And like I said, we're looking at bringing small groups of kids in to do welding. And really, I think a mom would feel pretty safe. You know, I've got one-to-one welding, and so to go stick a kid in a welding booth, he isn't going to get in touch. He's wearing gloves. There goes the hand. I don't worry about the welder being safe. And then he's going to be in a little cubby by himself. So it's really a safe environment. So I think whoever said it before, letting their kids come up for some of the CTE labs, I think parents are going to let their kids do that. I don't know. That's just me. I tend to be glass half full. So
I do too. And I think welding kind of keeps coming up because everyone can visualize the difficulties and challenges and opportunities as well, like Don was talking about. Also, for those of you that are new, we have 329 and we usually have about 150. But for those of you that are new, the group of administrators, a lot of the administrators on here for automotive have been talking about a program called Electude that has theory and what would be considered lab practices virtually. So Electude, CTUDE, I think is the correct spelling. I'm not looking at anything, but that's just for the group if you have automotive.
Donna, Bruce Beck over with Elgin ISD. We have a PTech welding program. We've been working with Austin Community College over the last week, and they've been really good about updating our entire crosswalk. So what we're doing for the PTech welding students is we're moving all of those classes like blueprint, metallurgy, some of the advanced sciences, some of the non-welding, and clustering beyond cohorts. Generally, we'll have freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors on different tracks, but we're combining those. So our hope by changing the crosswalk for this year is it takes them out of the hands-on, which takes some of the incentive away for those students who really love that type of learning activity. But in the short term, we can look at it semester by semester and at least keep them moving forward in the program.
that's a great idea. Thank you.
ESTC has a campus in North Texas, and all of their lab activities are by appointment anyway. That's just the way they do it normally. So that was becoming a trend in community colleges, regardless.
In Goose Creek, we're trying to make up some of our dual credit college contact hours from the spring. And so right now our automotive students and our culinary students are coming in smaller groups, you know, the 10-to-1 ratio and, you know, geared up gloves and all of that. But we had, you know, a fairly decent number of students. We didn't have very many who say they were not going to come in to do that work. And so that smaller group or by appointment or whatever may end up being successful because right now we do have quite, you know, it's less than probably 10 or just over 10 in each one of those labs right now, making up hours from the spring. They did the whole coursework during the COVID time. And so we just put off until this late, and it's like, well, now we've got to get them finished with those classes so they can start next semester.
And the same thing, we'll pick up welding and pipe fitting on the 27th and try to get the rest of them through those lab hours. And then we'll go back virtual and let them do the textbook side of it. And again, if we have to schedule by appointment only, we'll try to figure that out. But right now, small group, yes, we do have them showing up, making up some of their hours. So that's at least a good sign that maybe they will come in to do that.
There are several great ideas that are coming through chat, and we usually do save those chats and send the recorded chat out with the link for the recorded video too. So keep an eye out for that.
We're doing something similar to Goose Creek in that we're bringing our CNA and EKG and pharmacy tech kids up in small groups this summer to do that testing. We came up with a plan, and so we're doing that sort of thing. Probably will be doing a lot of the same thing with welding. I think that the biggest issue for all of us in terms of accountability is the certification issues. We ran out of time. We were fixing to start that certification season. And Ashley Knudsen and I had a talk one day about, a lot of these certifications are great and they help you get a job, but they're not what I call essential to get a job. So I think that those essential ones, welding's one of them, AWS and the CNA, I think we're going to have better luck getting those kids to come back. But, get a kid to come back and take a Microsoft Office is going to be next to impossible. And I only say that because y'all are all CTE people, and I don't want us to get into a debate about what's important. I mean, they're all important for, the students. It's just, I think there's those, I think Ashley and I came up with a term, essential. And I think we can get kids to come in for those essential ones, but, to take a automotive test, ASE test, probably not. So it's difficult. That's the hard part. And there's long-term implications for those. Now, TEA has given us to January to turn in our final certification list. They'll look at the winter submission is when the final list has to be complete, which is a good thing. But are any of you doing anything to get your kids to come back to take certifications? And how is that working for you? It's working great for CNA right now, but I'm just curious.
We're doing the CNA program right now and have some kids come back and some are actually working ahead. And then we've got some teachers who are still trying to, a lot of our seniors are actually working right now in the nursing homes. So the teacher is the one who's their supervisor at the nursing home. So she's working on them that way as well to try to, but we are also right now in the middle of running because that was our CTE summer grant. So we're in the process of doing that right now.
This is Richard in Dallas, and we are doing that with many of the health science certifications, is scheduling time during the summer months. It's a challenge because many of those exams have to be proctored. So you've got to work with the entity that proctors it to schedule time in. You've got to work with health services in your district to do the temperature checking and all that. Some of the other certifications, we did them to the extent we could, but as y'all know, our kids have Chromebooks, and many of those certifications do not lend themselves to a Chromebook platform. Like the CAD certifications are impossible to do, and we couldn't get enough student interest to come and do it during the summer months following county protocols.
I'm with Lubbock ISD, and we were doing the same thing with CNA, scheduling those over the summer and some of the Photoshop exams and mostly empty labs over the summer. For our computer classes, we're using VMware for remote in. So our kids with Chromebooks are remoting in to our own labs where we have our own high-end software, like some of the Photoshop software that's out there. And that's going to be our plan for making sure that they still get access to those softwares. And get to certify on those if possible. And if anybody else is
has a remote in model, whether you're using Amazon's cloud service or if you're using like a VMware. We're using Horizon 7 VMware. If you're doing something like that, I'll put my email address in the chat window and maybe we can talk about ironing out a couple of problems. But that's what we're doing in Lubbock right now.
This is Allison and Burville. We're planning on issuing our students in certification programs laptops instead of Chromebooks with software already on them.
I didn't hear all of that. Can you repeat it?
We're planning on this year, because we had the same problem as last year, trying to use the remote desktop and having problems with it. We're going to issue the students to begin with for our one-to-one laptops in certain programs instead of Chromebooks.
Okay, thanks.
Richard, it looks like kind of what you were saying. Most districts are testing when they can, and looks like some of the, and I'm going through the chat box, it looks like some of the districts are testing at testing centers and bringing them in when possible. I think the big thing here is that everyone is doing all they can to get these students these industry-based certifications, and I believe that this sharing back and forth helps give ideas to where we can get even more students the certifications. You guys are great to share your resources with each other.
So Mark, I am very much for students getting industry certifications. Where I am struggling a little bit right now is when we talk with employers and we tell them the certifications that we're giving them, they'll say, oh, that's really important, but if they come to work for us, they're going to have to take our version of that. And so, you know, the concerning thing, there are only enough financial resources. It's not an unlimited pot of money. There's only so many resources, and we're probably all going to face budget cuts in school year 21-22. But yet we're pouring hundreds, well, probably statewide, millions of dollars into these certifications to be told by employers that they're going to have to take our version. So let's talk about automotive certifications. ASE is really important, but if you go to work for Ford, you're going to have to take the Ford certifications or the Toyota certifications or whatever. And that is true across this industry. So I'm okay with giving certifications for state accountability, but if our employers are really not saying that they are so good that they're going to give our kids jobs and not have to repeat them, I'm just worried about the amount of money that we're basically flushing down the toilet. And I don't know if any conversation's happening about that on the state level, but TEA can put as much weight as they want on these, but when I have employers telling me the kids are going to have to retake them, that concerns me based on the amount of money we're spending.
Richard, you know that you are preaching to the choir with because we've had past conversations, so you know that I'm on Team Richard with that. But you know, when in Rome, you have to fight the gladiators they throw in the ring, and right now that's what we're dealing with. And I will say this, Richard, that Ryan Merritt started a I'm gonna call it an advisory group, and he got a member from each area. And so that may be a good way to start the conversation back again, is go to that area rep that meets, if they're still having those meetings, that meets with Ryan a couple of times a semester. But preach on, brother, I'm with you.
Yeah, I don't know where we went, you know, with the IBC list that was approved and then released. And I know all of the certifications had to be vetted. But as far as the criteria that it was recognized by the industry, I just don't, there's so many on there that are not recognized by the industry. I don't know how many of them cleared that section, especially there's one that, well, there's numerous ones, but there's one that I was just recently doing some investigation on. And if anybody knows, I'd love to hear your input, but I was looking at the patient care technician certifications, the ones that are listed on the, our programs of study, IBCs. I've talked to hospitals, and yes, there are positions called patient care technicians. And on a national level, if you get a CNA cert, an EKG cert, and a phlebotomy cert, then that kind of culminates in saying that you're, you know, but as far as the testing entities that are listed on our IBC, there's like 4 different ones that offer a patient care technician cert. Those aren't recognized by the hospitals. Not the hospitals. I mean, I've talked to the ones in our area, which we're talking big hospital systems. Does anybody know anything about those patient care tech certs?
I've heard the same thing. I have my teacher who is the CNA teacher. Every time I've said patient care tech, she said, yes, they start with this and then they have to add those on. And, you know, I said, but no, Caduceus has the PCT program and any teacher can teach it. She goes, but that's not a patient care tech for the hospital. And we've kind of been having that debate. So I'm glad to hear someone else say that, because I've been hearing the same thing. But I was kind of, I guess, doubtful, because I had one person telling me, but I had the state saying PCT and use other sources. So
right, and they're listed, and patient care technician is just an example, but like NHA and some of these other certification bodies that say, you know, yeah, you take our course and then you pass this teacher proctored exam and they're certified patient care technician. Well, I mean, I'm not really knocking the quality of those programs, but I mean, I could develop a program on my own and call it a, you know, certified, you know, dog caretaker or whatever. And then after they go through my course, I can certify them. But it doesn't mean that that's going to be recognized by anybody.
Can I just toss this in? I mean, we had this conversation with our advisory board, and sometimes, even though they don't recognize it, it gets their foot in the door and puts their application ahead of the person that doesn't have that. So for example, I'll give you one example. We do forklift driver certification. That's not on the list. And even though that's not a whatever, I mean, it's not on the magical list, our board has us do it, because if they came in and said, I have this, or if they our ASC certification, they come in and they say, I have this, what that does sometimes, it puts them ahead of the person that has nothing. Now, that's what they've told me, but I get all that, and it's a huge, we've got to keep looking at that list. It's craziness. But one other thing to toss in there, I was in the APAC meeting this morning, which is the accountability meeting. One of the things that we could do, I think that would be helpful for everyone, because they're looking at modifying accountability for COVID and all the stuff that we're going through. I think one of the things that you might be able to contact your legislator or your Board of Education member is, we need to reinstate that half point for completion, because if we can't test, that would at least give us a half a point toward accountability. So I would advocate to you that we do that. That's an issue that has not been addressed, but we really do need that half point back, so that at least if we can't test, we've got something to keep us from dying. The other thing is on military readiness. I have a really big problem right now. They still haven't gotten the military permission from the Pentagon to give us who's enlisted. They still haven't signed the MOU with all that's going on. They don't know when they're going to do that. But if you've not looked at the military readiness piece, the qualifications for just readiness and the qualification for the bonus for military is the same thing. And so no one at TEA represents the military. I think they do. Ryan, if you're here, I'm sorry. But I mean, there's no one like we have this organization that, and so I think that the military readiness is a huge piece. And what they told me today at APAC was only include the people on your list that have literally enrolled and have enlisted. Well, you know, if they can't get it, how in the heck do they think I'm going to get it? So there's those issues. We need to reinstate the half a point to keep us going. Right now, the commissioner's not ruled on when it's going to come and go. It was supposed to go out last year.
Donna, have you heard him make any comments about the idea of allowing a point for completion of program of study?
It's only been the half a point discussion. Robin, when I was in the meeting with the commissioner, not this one, but the one, our last face-to-face, I said, you know, with the, you know, we can't evaluate what program completion means because now we have a new set of standards and we're all doing the same programs. I mean, it was hard to say they were helpful when everybody had different ones. And now that we have the same, and he was quite open at that point, but I've not heard the full point. But that's another thing we need to talk to our legislatures about, and our Board of Education people. If nothing else, a half point, we've got to get that, because if we don't, we're going to die. Because if we have another problem like this year where we can't bring kids into test, what are we going to, I mean, there goes our accountability. And so, Robin, I haven't heard the full point. It wasn't mentioned. We're meeting again, APEC is meeting again, I think in a couple months, and I've asked for that to be put on the agenda. You know, there's so much concern about the STAR testing and how that's going to be, blah, blah, blah. What are we going to compare it to? That we don't have a lot of push. And so I would just say that that's something we've got to have the half point back. And I think what it would be based on is would be based on the new sequences. It's what we've approached him about. And so those kids that are completers in the new sequencing, not either with your local or the state cert, is what we're looking at, Robin. And the commissioner was open to that. And then we've asked him to, because the big problem is they're not going to give us credit for anything they can't back up. You know, this self-reporting military isn't going to happen. That's why they're throwing such a fit over it. They have to be able to confirm it. And so, you know, but they told us definitely not to use kids who express an interest in the military as a military ready. But you can't have the same, I told them this morning, you cannot have the same readiness and bonus cannot be the same thing. That's craziness. So they don't like me to go to those meetings. Y'all probably think I talk too much now anyway. So, but we got to get the half point back. So I would encourage you to talk to Robin. We need to push that legislatively with the commissioner.
The pink building is a good place for that too.
I'm concerned the programs of study, if we start to place too much emphasis on that, that it's going to force us to, I think they're too strict. So I would hate to get ourselves into a hole to where they even mean more than they currently do. Because I mean, I feel like our district offers awesome sequences for our CTE students. I'm very proud of what we do. But when I'm trying to match it up with programs of study that were just approved, it's hit or miss. And I don't want to rearrange my entire sequencing of what's been successful for the past few years because something was just published on a program of study and it interchanged a couple of courses. I think, I mean, one of the things is even when I look at like our CNA students, and they've taken, say, Health Science 1 and gone into CNA, and they've gotten their CNA certification. Well, they've only taken 2 courses for 3 credits, so they're not considered, what, a CTE completer? In my mind, they're a CTE completer.
Well, these are awesome discussions related to program of study and certifications, and you know, they've been important discussions, it seems like, for years now. Does anyone have any COVID school opening related issues that they'd like to get to before the group starts peeling away?
Mark, I know we have a mix of people on here, of teachers and counselors and administrators. I would be curious what some people's concerns are of coming back, or areas where they see from their lens that people really need to focus on, that folks around the table may not have thought of before. Just wondering if what burning items in people's minds are. Oh my gosh, have you thought about this? That maybe we haven't already said.
Hey, Sherry, this is Cal. One of the issues that I have is I have kids that like to borrow pens, pencils, rulers, scissors. I have a lot of kids that use Kleenexes. I just wanted to know if there was any thought from administration on how do we go about that, not allow kids to get up and move around the room or grab those things that you would have in a classroom. That was mine. And the other thing that I was wondering, for some of those classes that we teach, are we going to allow our students to exchange Chromebooks for laptops? For some of the software that we teach, like geometrics or Certiport or any of those other ones? I like that. But those are just some of the questions. So thanks.
Hi, this is Andrea Ellis. I had a question on what people are doing about the career prep. I'm seeing that in the chat, and I also had that question.
So are you concerned with it in terms of what COVID allows you financially, or are you concerned of what the procedures they're going to do?
Yes, I'm mostly concerned if our kiddos can't find jobs, don't find jobs. A lot of our small mom and pop places that some of our districts actually send kiddos aren't, open. And if and they're hopeful to be open at some point, but some of them have already closed their doors for good. So just kind of what that's a whole different, there's a lot of compounding issues. And then for the kiddos that are finding jobs, how are districts navigating letting them go into those positions, those places, and everything that surrounds that? Just any of those kind of thoughts and topics.
I had that same thing. I'm concerned about what the work hours are required, if they're going to have to meet all of those hours. If they can't, let's say they're working at a local retail establishment that's only open part-time, and they're having to go in with their school time that's open to. What if they can't get all those hours? Do we have to do that, or are they going to give us any kind of break on that?
We have kids working all over the place. I'm not sure. I mean, teachers visiting the places shouldn't be an issue as long as they're, but I mean, it may be that they have to have a job. I don't know. I'm not sure what the issue is with, maybe help me why that's an issue to have the career prep as an issue, because I'm not real sure why that's an issue.
I don't, for me, it's not an issue on the visits or anything. We're in a small town, and I have students that work at Walmart and HEB and then the fast foods, and they've worked the entire time through COVID. That was, you know, in my area, these kids help to put food on the table and pay the electric bill. So they had to keep working. But I am going to have a few that say, you know, I can't get my required 15 hours a week because where I was working, they're not open. So that's where I'm concerned about. Not the ones that are working.
I'm going to piggyback in with Robin. So kids that I have that work at, say, a boutique or, you know, another, I'm real small. So we're limited to essential business staying open, you know, and students that work in those places. What if that business has to shut down? They're in the work program, but maybe they reopen later. I mean, their hours are going to be, you see the concern now, Donna? I mean, it's, I don't know. I mean, all of us, all of our situations are going to be different, but these are all things that we're looking at, you know, right now.
I appreciate that. That helps me a lot to start doing some brainstorming here. So I appreciate your explanation.
I also know that some of the conversations that we've had, and I represent 12 districts, so some of the conversations we've had is over the last few years is kind of transitioning some of those career preps into the career practicum classes. But that's, which gives us a little bit more flexibility if our small boutique kind of places, our mom and pop kind of places are forced to shut down, we can just move them right back into that classroom learning, project style learning. So, but that's about the only solution we've come up with. But I do have 2 districts that they have really, really strong career prep classes. And when the world shut down in March and April, we were actively concerned what that was going to end up looking like. And I was glad that TEA kind of relaxed some of that, but I haven't heard anything about going into this next year. So I was just curious what others had heard. Thank you.
So I think the one thing to be reminded of when we look at career prep now is that they do give you the opportunity for it to be paid or unpaid. And so that flexibility then provides that if a student, let's say they start in career prep because they do need to provide for their family, that unpaid opportunity allows you to do some things, we'll say outside the box, to ensure that that student still meets the time allotment and things of those nature. So very much as you've been using your practicum, you're probably going to have to be very creative. I saw someone say that we had a teacher shortage for daycare workers and the opportunity for them to work in a practicum on your campus, or you need some maintenance help or things along those nature. There's a lot of things that unpaid could look like to still provide that opportunity.
Thank you.
Excellent. Jan Nadeau is with the University of Houston Innovation Center, and he has reached out to me here during the roundtable discussion. And if there's a glaring need that could be solved with a software solution, then the University of Houston Innovation Center would be ready to, or would be willing to take on that task. Do you have any, does the group have any type of software solution for a high need that would affect most districts that you think the Innovation Center there at the University of Houston could help develop a software component for?
Online virtual welding.
Jan, did you get that?
Yes, sir, I did. I'll follow up with Lisa. Thank you.
Hey, Jan, tell us when the stock options go public too.
I will, sir. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Jan. Andrew, thanks for that question about work-based learning. It came up a lot of times there in the chat. And again, I'm going to copy and paste this chat, and when we send out the link to the video, you'll have those responses too.
Thank you, Mark.
Anyone else? I think the closer we get, Robin, the more helpful these are. You were on. I think the closer we get to school starting, the more useful these become and the more specific that members get with solutions. Also, before we go here, I'd like to announce, and we'll send this out in a digital dispatch to everyone, that CTAT has currently offering a training group or training cohort for next gen administrators and you know, folks that are not directors but they're coordinators or specialists or instructional coaches. And we've been offering that for, I think we're about into our 4th month, and our 4th session will be in August. Well, beginning in September 1st, or beginning with the month of September, once they're all hired and your new budgets come out, then our plan is to start a new teacher group. And we're not going to get fancy with the name, I don't think, but we're going to call that the New Teacher Training Group for 2020-2021 school year. So our plan is to support those new CTE teachers, those teachers, you know, brand new certainly, and also less than 3 years, I think, could benefit from it as well. And we're going to reach out to many of you on this Zoom and get you to do sessions for our new teachers, because our new teachers need to hear from the experts that are located at this roundtable. So anyway, we'll be sending out a dispatch, and you'll have send it out to your new teachers, and you'll have the ability to register just like you did for the next gen or the mid-level cohort. The name of it is the next gen for the administrators, because we think that's going to be the next generation of high quality administrators for career and technical education in Texas. And we also believe that our teachers in the new teacher group will be the next generation of the best CTE teachers in the state. So we really have high hopes for that, and we hope that it's a benefit to members. And we plan on reaching out with a few other groups and cohorts as we go through the plague. Anyone have any other questions? Well, thanks to everyone for being here, and thank you for attending the conference. I hope you're getting something out of it. I went through and I had the ability after new admin to go through and watch a couple of sessions today, and they have all been outstanding. It just kind of blew me away, the quality of the sessions that were going on. In the 2:30 block is when I was looking. But thank you guys so much for being here. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, and it was great seeing everyone. Thank you, and we'll get that video out as soon as possible.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, guys.